Well, July the 13th sees another first for the Honourable Company. At least I think it is anyway. And we're going to have a picnic. So please come and join us at Kiftsgate Court Gardens, the home of fellow member Anne Chambers, whose family has lived in the house now for over 100 years and frankly has developed the gardens into its magnificence of today. And Anne is with us now. Hi there, Anne.
Hello, hello.
So first and foremost, though, let's not forget this. It has been and still is very much a family home, isn't it?
Yes, very much so, definitely, and has been for over 100 years now. My grandmother, my parents bought the house in 1919, and really wasn't very much of a garden at all. But luckily for my grandmother, Lawrence Johnson had bought Hidcote, which is next door to us, 10 years previously. So they became good friends and neighbours. And I think he encouraged her to make a garden. And she got completely hooked on gardening, having not had any sort of horticultural training at all, but she had a very good eye and colour sense. And she continued gardening until the 1950s, when my mum took over. And again, she hadn't been to horticultural school, but she had learnt from her mother, but was quite nervous to begin with, I think, taking over. But again, she got into her stride and loved gardening. And then we were lucky because when Johnny and I moved here in the 1980s, my mum was still going strong. So we learnt from her because we didn't know anything. We had a tiny garden in London and, you know, we really were very novices. But as she wanted to do a bit less, we did a bit more. So the transition happened sort of very amicably. And we've sort of gone on to really love the gardening and doing it together, which has been great.
And it is a full-time job, isn't it, really?
Yes, it is. I mean, you know, we are busy. When we moved here in the 80s, Johnny and I decided that we were going to make it a little bit more commercial than it had been. My mum actually opened the garden in the 70s, although my grandmother had opened for the National Garden Scheme way back in the 1930s. But Mum put it on a sort of more regular basis. And then we moved here and decided to propagate plants, and open a tea room and sort of make it more of an attraction. And we're open really 6 months a year from April till September. In normal years, a lot of people, I mean, even last year, actually, when we were able to open in June, we were busy. So it's been good fun, but hard work.
I'm sure, very hard work, but very rewarding. I mean, can you just give us sort of a snapshot? I'm sure a lot of members of the Honourable Company will have been to the gardens, but can you just give us a sort of a brief description of what you have there?
Yes. In the 1920s, my grandmother laid out the top area of the garden. We're very much on the end of the Cot. So we're looking over Ocean Vale. So there's a top area and then this very steep terraced bank down to the lower garden, which my grandmother created in the 1930s with the help of Italian gardeners. Faces west, so you look over to Bredon and Mills, and it is a wonderful view, but makes gardening quite tricky. The wonderful also Mont pines and Scots pines on the bank, so it has a Mediterranean feel about it. And it is very sheltered in the lower garden, so we can grow quite tender plants down there. I think we're known for roses, but actually we've expanded the collection of plants enormously, and we try and have something of interest sort of out throughout the season, and a lot of at the moment, a lot of shrubs and perennials, and it's a tremendous mixture. I don't know any plants, I've never really counted, but thousands, I think.
You mentioned roses there, and of course, gardeners will know about the Kiftsgate rose. So it's a famous rose, it's a climber, it looks absolutely beautiful. 2 questions. One, will it be in bloom when we're there in July? Probably not, I suspect. And secondly, can you give us a little bit of the history to the story behind the Kiftsgate rose?
Yes, absolutely. I think it should be. I mean, it's so difficult to predict it, but it should be out actually when you visit.
Right.
It's a complete monster. But my grandmother in the 1930s, the Machata rose from a nurseryman called, and she planted it. And it was Graham Thomas, who was a great rose expert and friend, came round the garden. He said, oh, no, no, it's not a Machata rose. It's a Phylopes rose from China. And he never seen one like it. So he sent to the Horticultural Society and had a house. So it became known as Rosa Phylopes rose, original rose, but it's sort of, and now it covers several trees. I mean, it is when it flowers, sort of white panicles flower, which sort of cascade down the plant, rather like a waterfall. It's not for a small garden. It's a monster really, and very thorny. We only can tackle it where we can reach it, but you know, it's an interesting plant.
Lovely. Sadly, Anne, we haven't got the best of connections, which is a shame because I think we could chat for hours. But can we just, can I just say one thing actually? If anybody is, hopefully people will come, but I would urge you to look at your excellent website, by the way, for more information. Can we just tackle a couple of sort of mundane things? Like we're hoping people will bring a picnic. Will the toilets be open?
Oh yes, definitely. And plants for sale. I'm going to be around and hopefully and answer any queries or name any plants.
And parking, obviously. I've been to your place a couple of times, so I know there's a big car park, which is great. We're asking members to give a charitable donation of £10, which I think is quite reasonable. And I think we may have lost the connection. Yeah, and I think we've lost the connection.
No, I can hear you now.
Okay. Well, shall we call it a day anyway? But thank you so much for joining us today. Just one final point. Hopefully members will know where you are, but can you just give us a vague idea where you are? I know you're in the north of the Cotswolds, but a geographical location would help.
Yes, absolutely. We're just above the village of Mickleton, and we are signed along with Hidcote National Trust Gardens on brown signs from Mickleton or from Chipping Camden. So the postcode, yes, is GL 556LN. And if you follow the signs to Hidcote, you will literally see our black gates just below, half a mile away. So I think hopefully everyone will find us.
I'm sure they will. And thank you very much for joining us today.
Not at all. Pleasure.
All right.